Welcome to yet another episode of Meet the Founders, a series where we meet world-changing, highly ambitious founders who have an incredible vision for what they want to see happen in this world and are working judiciously to make that vision come to life. Today, I'm joined by Jai Prasad, co-founder of Definitive Finance. It's a Web3 startup working in the space of bringing DeFi to the masses. Welcome, Jai.
Hi, Sunshine. Good to see you again.
I have known Jai for a while now. We were both at Coinbase. He's a second-time founder, an ex-product manager, and one of the best product thinkers in the world. And I'm so excited to hear about his journey from where he was born to where he is today. Jai, walk us through your life story.
Yeah, absolutely, Sunshine, and good to see you again. Taking it back to the start, I grew up in Mumbai, India, very far from here, just like you. I moved to this country when I was fairly young, around high school. So I was not very entrepreneurial growing up. My parents are both by the book. They actually worked in government jobs in India at the Reserve Bank of India, and then they moved to the US, work at the World Bank and the IMF. So they were always big company people who really believed in kind of institutions. And I was trained to, classic Indian student who moves here. I was kind of from day one trained to study hard, get the best grades, get a job at a big company and try to rise up the ladder. Kind of Indian way. If you're not a doctor or a lawyer, you join a big company and you try to climb the ladder to make it. And, that's what I was doing. I went to university, I studied hard, I got good grades, I got my first job at like a big, management consulting company initially. But at some point there was like a pivotal moment where my perception of this world changed. And I think that is really due to who you surround yourself with. So during the time of my first job, I started hanging out with these other entrepreneurs in Washington, DC. I would go to meetups. I went to there was something called a startup weekend where you would go on a Friday, and by Sunday, you had to come up with an idea to start a company. I went to one of these startup weekends. It was your classic hackathon. And I worked with some folks, came up with some crazy idea. The craziest part was when we pitched it, there was some investor who at the moment told us that he would give us $50,000 to go pursue this idea, to quit our job and do it. At the time, I thought this was super crazy. Like, why would I do that? I worked hard for so many years to get this high paying, consulting job. But then later on, I thought that it's actually not that crazy. Actually, the risk in my life was not pursuing these sort of opportunities. The real risk was just following the path and not, pushing myself to explore new options. Fast forward a year or two more, and I'm working in New York City as a software engineer at a startup. This startup is an equity crowdfunding startup. So for context, what they did was they made it really easy for investors to invest in startups online. This was never a thing, so only if you were in Silicon Valley or New York could you invest in startups. Now, these folks were building an online platform. So I was working there and building kind of a way for democratizing startup fundraising. And then all of a sudden what happened was we started hearing about these things called ICOs. A lot of our customers would ask us, hey, can we invest in these startups with this thing called Ethereum or these tokens? And we were really confused. In 2017, I started kind of digging deeper into what this ICO thing was, what was going on. And I started hanging out in Brooklyn at this collective called Consensus. And for context, Consensus was founded by this guy, Joe Lubin, who was one of the early Ethereum founders. I got kind of looped through my job, and my curiosity, I got looped into this Ethereum space. And from there, there was no turning back. And kind of that was just the spark that started my startup journey and ended up starting my first company.
That's incredible. When many people ask me, what's the path to being a startup founder? I always remind them, there is no one path. As you can see from Jay's story, how he went from being a management consultant to discovering Ethereum and working with the co-founder is just magical. And that's how great careers are built. And that's how great founders stumble upon great opportunities as well. It's always in hindsight that you can connect the dots, not looking. So what happened at Consensus? Tell me a little bit more after that.
Yeah, totally. So we were building, for my day job, we were, building this platform for investors to invest in startups for equity. We were doing well. Maybe we had done 100 million in investments on our platform. And then in one day, one of these ICOs raised 100 million. What we'd done in our lifetime happened in one day with one of these ICOs.
I met ICOs, man. Not really.
It's crazy times, but I think ICO apart, I think the main learning was there's this open, permissionless system where anyone can, access financial services anywhere in the world. All they need was, an internet connection to do it, right? And that to me was very powerful from, I guess, someone who, like yourself, grew up in India where, there's a lot of government controls and restrictions. and then who was building this very regulated platform. I kind of saw this whole new world where the technology itself was extremely powerful and the applications of it were broad. And so the early days at Consensus, what they did really well was bring together a bunch of misfits from all forms of life. You had your cryptographers, your distributed set systems engineers, you had lawyers, politicians, etc. So you had just a mix of people with all these different ideas who were all drawn to this technology. And so it was one of those moments where once you understood the power that this technology could pursue, and there was no going back for me. So that led me to my first company, which was called Token Analyst. At the time, there were hundreds of ICOs, but which one should you invest in was a problem. No one actually knew that. We were trying to build like a Bloomberg terminal for that early crypto market where we would analyze a lot of the on-chain data. So this was a new kind of data because these ICOs were tokens that lived on Ethereum that had data. So we were trying to make it easy for people to decide which of these tokens to invest in, which of them to keep, etc. So started one of the first on-chain data companies back in 2017.
That's incredible. And then walk us through how that company fared. What were the learnings from that experience, and how did you end up at Coinbase?
Great question. So I guess how the company fared, maybe I'll start with the learnings. One learning I have from that company is being early is as bad as being wrong. And we were doing this crypto data and the market crashed in 2018. So all the ICOs that were big then were not so much anymore. So demand for our data basically disappeared overnight. We pitched this vision for democratizing crypto data. We had all these LOIs, initial customers. All of a sudden, they were not customers anymore, and crypto was not cool anymore, and they didn't want this data. They didn't want to invest in ICOs, etc. And so we kind of kept building our technology through this market, but we got to around late 2019, and we were trying to raise more money, and it was definitely very hard. So we were talking to a bunch of different investors. I guess we were at a crossroads where we were talking, to Coinbase, where Coinbase, because they had a very long-term view in this market and were well capitalized, saw it as a great opportunity to pick up a team like ours who was basically trained in this space for 2 years, had built technology that Coinbase could acquire and use. We had to choose between raising funding at not the valuation or terms we'd want, or joining up with Coinbase through a acquisition, acqui-hire type process, and basically realizing our vision there. So, but the main learning really was, Sanchan, being early is being wrong, because 7 months later, this whole DeFi ecosystem blew up, and people who were kind of our early competitors then, like Dune Analytics and Anson, raised 60, 80, $100 million rounds. We ended up joining Coinbase through this process, which ended up obviously being a great experience and on its own. But it was one of those things where I learned a lot about building product and also about just raising money, raising enough to last you through cycles, especially in crypto.
Awesome. So let's talk about Definitive. Let's take a look at the product and give us a demo.
Yeah. So Sanchan, you asked me, what is Definitive? What problem are we solving? Why are we building this? So just good to give the audience a bit of context first. Our tool is geared towards folks who have used DeFi and who use it today. And if you do use it, it's a very manual, error-ridden, not scalable process. The screen I show you is what my screen used to look like in a pre-Definitive world, where I had hundreds of tabs open. I had to click buttons. I had to refresh. I didn't know if I made money or not, if I had to do my taxes. I had to copy paste things from, if you're familiar with Etherscan, into spreadsheets. So TLDR here it's just a very manual process to use DeFi. And the second problem is DeFi is not like your bank. It's 24/7, and there's a lot of hacks and exploits that you must have heard of on Twitter. While this is a really powerful technology, there've been a lot of bad actors who have tried to exploit it. So really, if you're managing a lot of money in this space, the process today is you hire one person whose sole job is to refresh pages and copy paste P&L, profit and loss spreadsheets, and make sure they don't get exploited. Just doing all of this manually. So if they're on holiday and something happens on Sunday night when they're asleep, they're just going to lose their money. And this is a story anyone who's used DeFi is familiar with. Kind of what we went out to solve is, how do we streamline this entire process where we provide one simple interface through which investors can invest in DeFi and not worry about losing their money, know that they're earning money, get all their reporting and P&L and metrics in one place. And so this was like the genesis of Definitive. I'll kind of go into the product really quick. So, just to juxtapose, this is what, again, DeFi looks like right now, where you click on websites, and then this is Definitive, where You come to our platform, and right now it's a place for you to earn yield in DeFi. So instead of understanding about all these different protocols in DeFi and clicking buttons, you kind of come to our app, you learn about something, learn about a different opportunity, you see some metrics that are relevant to you. Again, this is targeted at people who are DeFi familiar. Come to our platform, you have to connect a wallet, which is pretty common. And then you connect your wallet and you deposit money. Everything else that you see here is actually similar to what you would see at a Coinbase Prime or a very professional exchange, where you can see a summary of how your position is performing, how much you're earning. You can get historical data and charts. You can get an activity feed for reporting. You can kind of configure and figure out what exactly is happening under the hood. And our proprietary feature is this automation page where we have bots that monitor your position in real time. And if we notice something that's happening that doesn't seem right, we protect your money. Kind of instead of going to a website and clicking around, we built like one streamlined platform for all your DeFi activity. You can earn yield, you can trade, and you can get everything from reporting to risk management to performance tracking, all in one place, all from one. And know that, more than anything, your funds are safe and while you're earning money in it. So again, we're kind of in the early stage of the company. We've just launched our private beta. We have around 5 to 10 million of funds on platform today. And, we'll be going live pretty soon and scaling this up.
That is an incredible product. I'm absolutely certain that many people who are familiar with DeFi will be looking for this, will be very excited when you expand the reach of it.